A Chinese outboard just strolled into a market that Mercury and Yamaha have dominated for half a century, and it showed up swinging a 300 horsepower V6 priced low enough to make dealers do a double take, and the headlines are practically screaming that it replaced Mercury overnight. Except that's not quite what happened. The truth is stranger, more interesting, and a lot more uncomfortable for the other big four manufacturers than a simple price war. Stick with me, because by the end, you'll know why this quiet Suzhou company has the whole industry rattled. So who exactly is Parsun? If the name rings only a faint bell, you're in good company, because for most of its life, this was a brand that powered other people's boats without ever asking for the spotlight. The company set up shop in Suzhou more than 20 years ago, but the engineering bloodline runs deeper than that. Its core technical team traces its roots back nearly 60 years, and in the late 90s, some of those engineers were working alongside OMC, the American outfit behind Johnson and Evinrude, developing components for high-power outboards. That heritage matters. This wasn't a group of newcomers reverse engineering a lawnmower and hoping for the best. For years, Parsun played the patient game. It built smaller engines, exported them without fanfare, and within a few years had become the largest outboard exporter in China. Today, its motors run in well over 100 countries, on everything from UN-aid boats to military patrol craft. Backed by a publicly traded parent company, it had the one thing most challengers never get: time and the money to wait. While the Big Four counted profits, Parsun was sharpening its knife, and then it stopped playing small. The engine that changed everything wears 3 numbers on its cowling. That engine is the F300, and it's the reason people started paying attention. Until recently, the biggest outboard Parsun built topped out at 60 horsepower, then crept up to 115. Jumping straight to 300 is the kind of leap that usually ends in tears. This one didn't. The F300 is a 4-stroke V6 displacing 4,176 cubic centimeters with dual overhead cams, multi-point electronic fuel injection, and electric shift. The bore and stroke both measure 96 millimeters, a perfectly square design that engineers love for its balance of torque and revs. On paper, it lines up against the Yamaha and Mercury 300-horse offerings without flinching. Off paper, the story gets spicier because the F300 lands at a price that can run thousands below the Japanese and American competition. For commercial operators, fishing fleets, and budget-minded weekend warriors who never had a credible option in this power class, that gap is impossible to ignore. Now, a low sticker price is only half a story, and independent reviewers have been careful to say the real verdict comes from years on the water, not a spec sheet. Fair enough. But the spec sheet got the conversation started, and the conversation got loud fast. The big V6 grabs the headlines, yet before we talk technology, it's worth asking whether real owners back up the brochure. Specs are easy to print. Holding up on the water is the hard part, and that's where Parsun's long low-key exporting career earns its keep. Because these engines have been sold for years across New Zealand, Australia, and chunks of Europe, a sizable pool of owners is out there logging serious hours, not just first impressions from a boat show. The feedback from those veterans tends to land in the same place. Long-time owners talk about motors that start on the first pull season after season, about fuel burn low enough that one fellow joked his engine had nearly paid for itself, and about 2-stroke Parsuns still looking and running like New Year's down the line. These aren't paid spokespeople. They're working boaters and weekend anglers who bought on price and stayed for the reliability. The electric side draws similar notes. Owners of the little portable outboards mention how quiet and light they are, how the battery lasts longer than expected, and how easy the whole thing is to haul down to the dock. None of that proves the brand new 300-horse V6 will go the distance, and we'll get to that fair caveat. But it does explain why the skepticism never fully stuck overseas. People who ran the engines mostly kept buying them. That track record at the small end is what gave Parson the nerve to push fuel injection across its entire range. Parson's busiest work happened where nobody bothered to look: the 4-stroke EFI lineup. Fuel injection has trickled down through the entire family, from the little F20 twin all the way up to the F115, and that matters more than it sounds. For decades, the affordable end of the outboard world meant carburetors, choke fiddling, and that grim ritual of cranking a cold motor on a frosty morning. Parson was one of the earliest Chinese builders to push EFI and linerless aluminum blocks into budget engines, and it shows in how these things start and sip fuel. The F115 is the standout. It's a 4-cylinder, 16-valve, all-aluminum design with twin camshafts and multi-point injection, and Parson was the first manufacturer to mass-produce a 115-horse outboard in China. Owners in New Zealand and Australia, where these engines have been sold for years, rave about the fuel burn and the easy starts, with some saying the savings practically paid for the motor. Now for the part nobody at a boat show wants to say out loud. Many of Parson's smaller 4-strokes share design, DNA, and parts compatibility with older Yamaha and Tohatsu engines, which is why so many parts interchange. Some owners treat that as a feature, purists treat it as a sore subject. Either way, it's no accident. If the gas engines are the loud disruption, the next product line is the silent one, and it might matter more. Most folks expect a company like this to chase horsepower. Fewer expected Parson to plant a flag in the trolling motor world, the turf long ruled by names like Minn Kota and Motor Guide. Yet that's exactly what happened with the TM120A. This is a trolling motor built for serious anglers, sitting in the 120-pound thrust class, and its calling card is a lightweight, foldable design that tucks away when you don't need it and deploys fast when the fish are biting. Parson put serious marketing muscle behind it, even signing on as the official sponsor of a competitive lure fishing tournament where one angler hauled in a catch pushing 4 kilograms. That's not a coincidence. Tournament anglers are the toughest, pickiest customers in fishing, and getting a motor onto their boats is a credibility play. The move tells you something about the company's ambitions. Parson isn't content being the cheap alternative for the back of a dinghy. It wants the bow of a bass boat, the kind of spot where brand loyalty runs deep and reputations are earned cast by cast. Breaking in there takes nerve and a product that holds up under a long day of fishing. Whether the trolling motor sinks or swims, it's the all-electric outboards that reveal where Parson thinks the whole sport is heading. The trolling motor is electric, sure, but Parson's full-electric outboards are a different animal, and the company gets surprisingly forward-thinking here. Take the Joy series. The Little Joy 1.2 puts out roughly 3 horsepower worth of push, runs off an integrated lithium battery in the neighborhood of 1,440 watt-hours, and delivers somewhere around an hour and 20 minutes of running at full throttle. It's portable, splits into 2 pieces so one person can carry it, and runs near silent with 0 emissions. For a dinghy, a tender, or a sailboat auxiliary, that's a seriously tempting package. But the most fascinating piece of the electric story is a partnership most people have never heard about. Parson teamed up with Elco Motor Yachts, a New York company that's one of the oldest electric boat builders on the planet, with a history stretching back over a century. Together, they develop electric outboards up to around 25 horsepower, the kind already running in national and state parks where gas engines are banned outright. Sit with that for a second. A Chinese manufacturer and a storied American electric boat pioneer, building clean propulsion together, while the established giants are only now scrambling into electric. It flips the usual story about who copies whom. And to build all of this at the prices it charges, Parson had to rethink the factory floor itself. This is the part that should worry the competition most, and it has nothing to do with any single engine. Not long ago, Parsun cut the ribbon on a brand new headquarters in Suzhou, an event the chairman framed as the dawn of the company's 2.0 era. Behind the speeches sat the real story. A smart factory designed to crank out modern outboards faster and cheaper than the old way ever could. The production workshop runs on 5G connectivity, with automated guided vehicles ferrying parts around the floor on their own, a setup the company credits with lifting efficiency by around 40%. A dedicated assembly line handles 300 horsepower engines, using laser marking and intelligent assembly carts to keep tolerances tight. Even the paint shop got the treatment, with robotic spraying pushing paint utilization up to roughly 65%, cutting waste and cost in one move. The numbers behind the doors are just as telling. The company claims it has averaged compound growth of more than 20% a year over the past 5 years, with its sights set on around 2 billion yuan in sales. And it's doing this with a workforce of only a few hundred people. That's lean. That's hungry. That's the profile of a company that intends to scale, not coast. All that capacity only matters if the engines go somewhere, and Parsun's reach has steadily stretched right across the globe. While Americans were busy ignoring the brand, the rest of the planet had already climbed aboard. Parsun engines turn up in well over 100 countries, and the spread isn't random. The brand found its earliest, hungriest customers right where you'd expect a value player to thrive, across Southeast Asia, Africa, and South America, where the price of a Japanese flagship can be the difference between owning a working boat and owning nothing at all. The customer list goes well beyond weekend fishermen too. Parsun has supplied engines for United Nations aid programs in Africa and for several national militaries, including naval and ground forces in different parts of the world. That kind of buyer doesn't gamble on junk. Aid groups and armed forces need motors that start in rough conditions, survive abuse, and keep running far from the nearest dealer, and they signed off after their own testing. Meeting the strict emissions and certification standards in the US and Europe opened still more doors. An engine that satisfies American and European regulators isn't a backyard special, whatever the skeptics assume. Brick by brick, market by market, Parsun built a global footprint long before the boating press in the West bothered to notice it existed. But a sharp price and a global map don't make an engine bulletproof, and the fairy tale hits some rocks right about here. Time to be straight about the warts, because there are some serious ones. The biggest is service. In the United States especially, Parsun has nothing close to the dealer and support network that Mercury or Yamaha spent decades building. These engines have often shown up through general online retailers rather than proper boat shops, which means warranty help can be hit or miss, and finding a mechanic willing to touch one can turn into a quest. Then come the parts. Owners worry about getting the right propeller, the right gasket, the right gearbox component when something inevitably wears out, and a thin distribution pipeline makes those worries reasonable. Buy one, have it damaged in shipping, and the path to a fix isn't obvious. Stack the import tariffs on top, and that beautiful price advantage starts to shrink. The online crowd has split into two camps. Overseas owners who've run these engines for years tend to defend them fiercely, pointing to low fuel burn and trouble-free seasons. Skeptics counter that nobody truly knows how a brand new 300-horse V6 holds up after a few thousand hours in saltwater. Both camps have a point, and only time settles it. The doubts are fair, but the established giants didn't just shrug them off, and how they fought back is its own story. When a disruptor shows up, the incumbents rarely roll out the welcome mat, and this fight has been no different. The most obvious weapon has been trade policy. A 20% tariff on Chinese goods, Outboards included, landed not long ago and instantly made imported Chinese engines pricier. The delicious irony. Mercury itself builds some of its 40 to 60 horse engines in China, So that same tariff bites the home team too, while the small Japanese-built motors sail in duty-free. This isn't the first rodeo either. About 20 years ago, Mercury's parent company pushed an anti-dumping case that briefly slapped a duty of nearly 19% on Yamaha engines, only for US trade regulators to throw it out after finding no real injury to American industry. Incumbents have always reached for trade tools when a cheaper rival arrives. It didn't stop Yamaha back then, and history rarely repeats itself politely. Meanwhile, the Big Four haven't been napping on the product front. Mercury rolled out a monster V10 Verado covering the 350 to 400 horse range, and Yamaha has pushed into electric with its rim drive system. They're innovating, no question. The real argument is whether they're moving fast enough. The defensive playbook explains the present. The deeper question is how a company from Suzhou got here at all. This is the part the spec sheets miss. Parsons' rise wasn't luck, and it wasn't an overnight copy job. The pattern looks an awful lot like the one we watched in the phone business, where Chinese makers spent years building components for established brands, soaking up quality and know-how, then climbed the value ladder to challenge the very companies they once supplied. Within a decade, those phone brands grabbed a third of the world market. The structure of Parsons' move is strikingly similar. 2 decades of building small engines gave Parsons manufacturing muscle. The old OMC engineering connection gave it credibility. Heavy reinvestment in research, dozens of patents, and a national designation as a specialized innovation-focused enterprise gave it the technical confidence to leap from 60 horsepower to 300. Add vertical integration and a state that actively wants this industry to win, and the picture sharpens. Contrast that with comfort. For years, the incumbents enjoyed fat margins, loyal dealers, and a market with no serious low-cost threat. Comfort is a wonderful thing to sell and a dangerous thing to rely on. So the obvious question becomes, what happens next, and how worried should the giants really be? The road ahead runs straight through that tariff wall, and Parsons knows it. The likely play is to route more product through overseas warehousing and assembly to soften the import hit, and the company already keeps stock stateside. Expect the 2.0 era expansion to keep pushing capacity and horsepower upward, with rivals like Hidea climbing the same ladder right behind it. Will the F300 conquer America? Probably not on price alone. The thing standing between Parsons and a real foothold isn't engineering, it's a service network, and networks take years and serious money to build. The brand that solves the wrench-turning problem, not just the price problem, is the one that truly arrives. Zoom out and the trend is hard to miss. The global outboard market is growing steadily, and Chinese builders are determined to claim a bigger slice of it every year. They may not topple Mercury this season or next, but the direction of travel is clear, and the gap is closing rather than widening. Which brings us to the part that reaches well beyond boat engines. Strip away the horsepower and the price tags, and the Parsons story is really about something older than outboards. Reputation is rented, never owned. The market that Mercury and Yamaha built was real and hard-earned, but no legacy is a moat forever. The same lesson played out when Yamaha rattled an American duopoly decades ago, and it's playing out again now from the other side of the Pacific. The companies that survive disruption aren't the ones with the longest history or the proudest logo. They're the ones that keep innovating when they have every excuse to coast. Parsons bet that hunger beats heritage. Whether that bet pays off fully is still unwritten, but the boating world has already been put on notice. So the next time someone tells you a brand is too big, too established, or too American to fail, remember the quiet company from Suzhou that decided the rules were up for grabs. So that's how an overlooked exporter turned into the engine the whole industry is suddenly watching. If you're curious how the giants it's chasing measure up against each other, why Japanese and American motors are so different is the perfect next watch. Whatever ends up hanging off your transom this season, keep your bilge dry and your throttle hand happy out there.